I'm a research assistant here at Queen's with the Bryden Centre, and my work primarily is looking at realistic applications of hydrogen to develop a hydrogen economy. So we've known now for 3 to 5 years that green hydrogen is going to be an important part of the energy mix in both transitioning and achieving a net zero and a zero carbon energy system kind of globally, and specifically here in Northern Ireland and Scotland. And my work is looking at real-world applications of that kind of stuff and developing simulations and scenarios that can demonstrate these projects in a shorter time frame that allows us to start to implement those kind of systems and develop a network and an idea of what that network will look like. So that one of the major kind of hurdles with the hydrogen economy and hydrogen energy is what's called the chicken and the egg scenario, where you can't create a supply because there's no demand, but you can't get a demand without a supply. And that's what we are trying to do at Bryden is break down that cycle of it's like paralysis around the problem, and through demonstrating that things like hydrogen networks in rural areas are possible, I think that started to turn that inactivity into a want to try and find a solution that works for everyone. A lot of people know about the large-scale, multi-megawatt electrolyzer systems that the USA, South America and the Middle East are developing at the minute to underpin the global network. But we are looking at a more local and specific way to generate a hydrogen economy in areas like Northern Ireland, the border area of Ireland and Scotland, that is specific and unique to us, because things that work in the deserts in the Middle East aren't going to work in wet and windy Ireland and Scotland. And my work has been looking at how we start with generation, adopt those technologies that work with the hydrogen we can generate, both at an industrial and a domestic scale. And that's set us up really nicely to look at a holistic view of what a hydrogen economy, specifically in Ireland, can look like. And my research has looked to answer the questions about the realistic application of those technologies. Are they financially viable? Are they technically feasible? And is it a realistic goal that we can develop those systems here with the knowledge base and the manufacturing base we have in the UK and Ireland? So I've mentioned that I looked a lot at distributed green hydrogen generation, and one of the reasons we're doing that is in Ireland we're blessed with a lot of rain and a lot of wind, and that means we have great renewable energy potential. Now most of that is near the Atlantic Ocean in the west of both Scotland and Ireland, and historically these have been areas where there haven't been a lot of people because it's been very windy and wet and just not a great place to live in terms of climate or weather. And what that has meant is there's a lack of developed infrastructure to deal with these large amounts of renewable electricity that can be generated there. So we've kind of viewed that problem as an opportunity, because if we have the ability to harness all of that wind power and turn it into electricity, and the electricity is the problem, can we use that to make green hydrogen? Like, we have worked with renewable energy companies like Ronan Group Renewables. We're working with a cooperative of businesses and people who are interested in specifically Hydrogen Northwest, which is a group that's focused on the northwest region of the island of Ireland. But our work also applies to places in Scotland, particularly in the Highlands and Islands, which is why we've worked with UHI in places like SAMS to look at things like tidal generation in remote communities, as well as wind, which is my primary area of study. So a lot of the work we've done is looking at distributed green hydrogen generation. And it's really an answer to a lot of the issues that the wind sector has had in Ireland and Scotland, where they have this fantastic wind resource in the western coast of Ireland and Scotland, but because historically there's not been large population centres, there's been a lack of infrastructure to deal with that. Our work with those companies like Ronan Group in Donegal has been focused on kind of seeing that as an opportunity rather than a drawback, and using green hydrogen and the road network that's there to export that energy in the form of hydrogen rather than in the form of electricity. And that has really been, I think, the lasting reputation of Bryden as a centre is we have an excellent relationship with our industry partners and our collaborative groups like Hydrogen Northwest that's looking at a simulation of what a hydrogen economy in Northern Ireland could look like. I think one of the lasting legacies of Bryden will be our close and positive relationship with our industry partners. Throughout my time here, I've worked with Ronan Group for, as a wind company, to how can they access that renewable potential that we have here in Ireland and Scotland. We've worked with the likes of NI Water as a large energy user, but also potentially a linchpin of a developing hydrogen network because of their distributed sites all over Northern Ireland. We've also worked with companies like Lagan Construction who are trying to actually implement these systems in reality today. I think that's what we've always tried to do at Bryden, is answer questions and show the way forward rather than what we could be doing, what are we doing, and how can we best implement those to be sustainable long term. One of the big problems with all of the work that's been done, and there is a lot of work, both in Bryden and externally, is demonstrating it can be done today. And there are problems, and there's no point sugarcoating it. The technology is emerging and developing very quickly, but it's still in some places not there, but in a lot of places actually it is. So one of my kind of wants with the research I've done is that it's a societal benefit, and that's very broad and sometimes gets used as a catch-all, but a hydrogen economy is an economy, the same as a financial economy where everyone's involved. And I've been very keen and very conscious during my research that there are things that will work for industry, and industry is a big driver of financing and change, but that doesn't exclude domestic applications for things like this. The more we diversify and the more alternative revenue streams financially or applications we find for these kind of green hydrogen systems, the more robust and sustainable they're going to be. Some of the stuff we're trying to do on the outreach and the public engagement side of Bryden is develop bespoke and cutting-edge education that starts to develop the skills that things like a hydrogen network are going to need, because traditional skills that people have can be transferred, but we're also going to need things like zero carbon engineers, which is a relatively new term, but I think is a much more appropriate term for someone like myself, even though I have a chemical engineering background. A lot of my work is in zero carbon and clean energy, and I think that's going to be where I would like to invest my research and my ability, because I think that's going to be really important in the next coming decades to visualize and realize that transition. We've taken the first kind of steps on that path, but we're going to need more people with more expertise and more passion to keep this moving forward, and that's going to be kind of our job as torchbearers and trailblazers to keep that momentum coming behind us.